Hey everyone, this is Adrian and we are here to talk about the periods and movements of literature. And here we're going to focus about the Romanticism period of literature. So without further ado, let's go. So before we start, let us talk about where the Romanticism word came from. So Romanticism word came from the word Romanticis, which is French, and it doesn't really literally mean love, but it is a romantic story told in verse. So in Romanticism, it is focused on the emotions and inner life of the writer. Next, we are going to talk about the characteristics of Romanticism. We have six of them, and these are the celebration of nature, focus on the individual and spirituality, celebration of isolation and melancholy, interest in the common man, idealization of women, and personification and pathetic fallacy. So first, we have the celebration of nature. Romantic writers saw nature as a teacher and source of infinite beauty. One of the most famous works of Romanticism is John Keats' The Autumn. In his poem, Keats personifies the season and follows its progression from initial arrival after summer, through the harvest season, and finally to autumn's end as winter takes its place. So, in celebration of nature, from the name itself, the writer's inspiration came from nature. The second one we have focus on individual and spirituality. Romantic writers turned inward, valuing the individual experience above all else. This, in turn, led to heightened sense of spirituality in romantic work. So when you are alone or when you are isolated, you tend to be more spiritual and you have more time to meditate on yourself, resulting to having a focused mind, and therefore they will use that for their romantic works. Next, we have the celebration of isolation and melancholy. So, Ralph Waldo Emerson was a very influential writer in Romanticism. His 1841 essay, Self-Reliance, is a seminal work of romantic writing in which he exhorts the value of looking inward and determining your own path and relying on your own resources. So, this is similar to the previous one because it talks about isolation. So, like before, when you are isolated, you have more time to determine your own self or your own path. Therefore, you are relying only on yourself and you are developing yourself to a better person. Why is isolation and melancholy together? Melancholy is a feeling of sadness, and this relates to isolation because when you are alone, usually it is accompanied by sadness, and the sadness can be used so that the writer have more emotion, and their emotion can be used to put into their works. So, as I said before, Romanticism period is a period of time where it is focused on the feelings of or emotions of the writers. Next, we have interest in the common man. William Wordsworth was one of the first poets to embrace the concept of writing that could be read, enjoyed, and understood by anyone. He eschewed overly stylish language and references to classical works in favor of emotional imagery conveyed in simple, elegant language, as in his famous poem, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. When we talk about the common man, it is a simple man. It is a man who doesn't really lean onward on things that are new and tend to stick with natural things. So, the common man is a simple man, therefore, we are going to use, so the writers are going to use simple words for them to understand his poem. So, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud was once used by our teacher because it was supposed to be a very understandable poem, and we are tasked to make our understanding about the poem. Next, we have idealization of women. In works such as Poe's The Raven, women were always presented as idealized love interest, pure and beautiful but usually without anything else to offer. Ironically, the most notable novels of the period were written by women. Jane Austen, Charlotte Bronte, and Mary Shelley, for example, but had to be initially published under male pseudonyms because of these attitudes. So back then, even in our times, women are overpowered with men, and this is also common in the Romantic period. This was because it is infused with the concept of women being perfect, innocent beings to be adored, mourned, and respected, but never touched or relied on or relied upon. Lastly, here we have the personification and pathetic fallacy. Romantic literature's fixation on nature is characterized by the heavy use of both personification and pathetic fallacy. Mary Shelley used these techniques to great effect on her poem Frankenstein. We already know the meaning of personification. It is giving an object or an animal the characteristics, the attributes of a person or a human being. And pathetic fallacy is quite the same. The only difference is personification gives abilities of human to objects and animals, while pathetic fallacy gives objects and animals the emotions of humans. For example, the clouds are crying, the clouds are weeping. It is a pathetic fallacy because weeping is an emotion or a feeling or something like that. But when we say the clouds are crying, it is a personification. So this is where we will end the video. Thank you for watching and goodbye.